Good evening. Hope everybody's doing well. Fun times. Didn't get a whole lot accomplished today. I did some flying. I did quite a bit of flying, actually, in the sim, and enjoyed that, but didn't get a whole lot accomplished. It rained today, so I couldn't do any of the beta testing outside. So, it was just one of those days. So I did keep up on news as it came in, the best I could, and man, I'm telling you, I know I sound like a broken record. I got so tired during COVID of coming here and talking to you about COVID, and it got real old real fast every single day. Going over numbers, talking about what the government's doing today and all of that. It got old. It was every single day. And I can remember even saying that I'll be glad. I will be so glad not to be talking about this every single day. Well, it kind of beats talking about nuclear war every day, I guess. Man, this is crazy, and I know I keep coming here and saying it's not getting any better. I know I sound like a broken record. I don't know what else to say. It's not getting any better. Nobody's even remotely trying to make it any better. That's the really concerning thing. The U.S. and much of NATO act like they're deaf and dumb and blind. They've got all kinds of people telling them Putin's not playing around. And I think as far as evidence been given, I would have to agree he's probably not playing around. I have no idea how this is going to go down. But I have a really good feeling that it's going to be in a manner that none of us really expect. There was someone years ago, someone that I paid a lot of attention to what they had to say. And I can't say they were always accurate. No one is. And I'm trying to think of his name off the top of my head, but I believe he was in the Ozarks. His name's John, and I'm struggling to remember his last name. Anyway, I faithfully listened to him for a while. The man's worked in intelligence and stuff like that for quite some time, actually. And pretty well on the ball. I wish I could remember that last name. Hang on. My brain anymore just is not where it was. It's gonna drive me nuts. And if anybody can figure out who I'm talking about, let me know. I think he lives in the Lake of the Ozarks area. talks about how he was at Fort Leonard Wood for quite a while. Talks about the UN troops that are already stationed in the country. And I'm trying to think of the... I'll get it. John Moore. Haha, I knew I'd get it. John Moore is his name. Anywho, he was asked, and again, this is one of those people that are you would consider in the know, and he was asked, what do you see coming? Can you describe it in a movie? And his reply was not one. I can describe it in two. Red Dawn and the day after tomorrow. Now, note, I said the day after tomorrow, not the day after, which was nuclear annihilation. The day after tomorrow was a massive weather event, which, could happen from a pole shift or any number of things that the sun could do. We already know we're headed for a pole shift. So, the other thing, though, was Red Dawn, an invasion. I'm telling you, I don't think we're going to get away with World War III and not have troops on the ground on our mainland. I just don't see that as even a remote possibility. And even if they don't put troops on the ground here, which I do believe they will certainly hit targets here. Doesn't have to be nuclear, doesn't have to be massive, widespread devastation. But think about it. What would that do? Could you even imagine the morale of the American people? To know that another nation, this nation that's been so big and strong for so long, that could repel anything for so long, only because people weren't really even trying. The boogeymen were mostly made up by them anyway. However, to see that big, strong nation, somebody actually trying to harm it, can you imagine the effect on the psyche when that happens? When they see Manhattan get hit by a cruise missile, and again, doesn't have to be nuclear. Doesn't have to be nuclear. Not even remotely nuclear. All they got to do is get a few lobbed in there, hit a few targets, take out a few people, and it will have such a devastating effect on the American psyche because we weren't used to that. We have no idea what it's like, and I'm talking about us as the collective, the majority of us have no idea what it's like to live in a nation that's under enemy attack. I'll tell you what, I think Putin's going to continue. It's been 2 nights now that he has been hitting Ukraine, and I think it's going to continue. I wouldn't doubt that we see another night of new strikes. I am kind of shocked that he hasn't made a real big strike yet, and I don't necessarily mean nuclear, but a big strike yet, and I'm surprised that he hasn't directly tried taking out Zelensky. That's what I'm waiting to see. At the same time, the lack of that being even attempted kind of has me tilting my head to the side a little bit, if you know what I mean. It's like, yeah, I don't know if that quite adds up. But I'll tell you what, I don't know what it is, but planes sound loud tonight. That's the second one I hear. They're taking off from St. Louis. That one's like now 20,000 feet. But they sound a lot louder and lower than what they are. Anywho. I do have some tabs open. Not a whole lot, like 6. Don't have anything really groundbreaking to share with you on anything. I've got the autopilot for sure figured out in the F-22, if you want to consider that groundbreaking. It's awesome for me. Because, hey, there ain't nothing like kicking your F-22 up to about 45,000 feet at Mach 2 and, I don't know, kicking back, drinking coffee. It was awesome. Earlier I was flying, and there was this dude. He followed me quite a distance. Literally followed me halfway across the country. That's like no exaggeration. Anyway, good pilot, really good pilot. I was doing just under Mach 2 at 45,000 feet, and I mean he was on me. I mean he was just literally formation flight with me at almost Mach 2. That was pretty impressive. Now, mind you, I had autopilot on. I wasn't touching nothing. I was just in a cruise. And still, at those speeds, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm not buying he had a stock F-15, though, I'll tell you that. So I noticed I landed at an airfield right by Cheyenne, Wyoming, of course. Had to go land over there by the underground complex. And when I left out from there to head towards Scott Air Force Base, here not far from us, he had switched into an F-22, so... And he flew with me for a little ways, and I don't know where he went. Telling you, it's a lot of fun. If you love aviation, and you got a computer that can run it, it's incredible. Or if you happen to have an Xbox Series S or Series X. I think it's X. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. It's got to be the, one of the Series S or the Series X ones, the new machines. I don't know nothing about those damn things, but... I know the S and the X, the new Xboxes can run it. Anywho. Gotta have a couple of vapes so I can cough some more. Because it makes sense. Like I said, I've got some tabs open. We're going to go over that. I'll go over headlines, and we'll call it good. Still tired. I don't ever not get tired anymore, but... let's see. You guys might want to go along. Moscow reveals results of new strikes on Ukraine. New missile strikes targeting Ukrainian military command and control sites and the country's energy infrastructure were conducted on Tuesday, the Russian Defense Ministry reported during a daily briefing. The attacks hit all intended targets and achieved their goals, the military claimed. Earlier in the day, Ukrainian officials and media reported more Russian long-range attacks in a rerun of Monday's strikes. Andrei Sadovoi, something like that, the mayor of the city of Lvov in western Ukraine, said his city faced another blackout due to the damage inflicted by Russia. A missile strike at a critical infrastructure object has left some 30% of Lvov without power, the official reported on social media. He added that there were issues with the water supply in the city and urged residents to stockpile for possible cuts. In Vinnytsia, I know I said that wrong, Vinnytsia, something like that, region in central Ukraine, man, the head of the administration, Sergei Borzov, reported drone attacks on a local power station, but later edited his post to a more neutral report of explosions in his region. The operator of the Ladysmith coal-fired power plant confirmed damage to its equipment in a drone raid on Tuesday morning. Reports of Russian missiles being engaged by Ukrainian air defenses came from the regions of Kiev, Odessa, Vinnytsia, in the Rovno and Kryvyi Rog regions. People on social media reported blasts on the ground, presumably caused by Russian strikes. The barrages came a day after almost all major regions of Ukraine came under a massive aerial assault. The Ukrainian military claimed to have intercepted roughly half of the missiles, but nevertheless, 11 key sites all across the country were damaged, according to the Ukrainian government. Moscow targeted Ukrainian power plants and other critical facilities after what Russian President Vladimir Putin called a series of terrorist attacks orchestrated by Ukrainian special services on Russian soil. The latest of them involved blowing up a truck laden with explosives on the Crimean Bridge, a strategic Russian link. Russian investigators reported on Saturday that there are at least 3 civilians were killed by the blast, but the number may be as high as 6, given that 3 people are reportedly still missing, according to the Telegram-based news outlet 112. Putin said Kiev's tactics could not be left without a response, and argued that Kiev had exposed its energy sector to Russian strikes by trying for months to sabotage key Russian infrastructure. Kiev's foreign backers condemned Russia's attack on Ukrainian infrastructure, in contrast to the muted reaction to the incident on the Russian bridge. The White House on Sunday declined to comment on the bridge blast and pledged continued military support of Ukraine. I don't even know how the hell that could have happened. I heard a mosquito buzz me. Now get this. I only heard it in one ear. I've got headphones on. How is that possible? I have headphones on. The mic is mono. If it buzzed the mic, I would have heard it in both ears. Let's see. NATO prepares for nuclear drills. So, I ain't playing around, yo. I'm telling you, they're wanting it. They're pushing it. Absolutely insane. Oh, man. Hang on. Couple baits. I'm allowed. Fun times. Alrighty, here it says NATO has confirmed that it's sticking to plans for its annular. I was going to say annular. For its annual nuclear drill, even as the escalating Russia-Ukraine conflict spurs fears of a direct and catastrophic confrontation between Moscow and the Western military bloc. This is routine training, which happens every year to keep our deterrent safe, secure, and effective, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg told reporters on Tuesday. The exercise, known as Steadfast Noon, will be held next week. It typically brings together dozens of aircraft from member nations and practices a nuclear strike mission. The jets typically don't carry live warheads. U.S. President Joe Biden warned last week that Russia and the West face a greater threat of nuclear Armageddon than at any time since the Cuban Missile Crisis 40 years ago. President Vladimir Putin has vowed that Russia will use all the means available to us to defend its people and territory, a statement that Washington and its NATO allies perceived as a threat to deploy nuclear weapons. Asked whether the 30 NATO members had discussed the potential for Steadfast Noon drill to cause a miscalculation amid heightened tensions with Russia, Stoltenberg dismissed such concern. Now is the right time to be firm and be clear that NATO is there to protect and defend all allies, and this is a long-time planned exercise actually planned before the invasion of Ukraine. The Secretary General added that it would send a very, very wrong signal if NATO canceled the nuclear drill because of the Ukraine crisis. Now, I want to interject there, and I've been wanting to say this since I started reading this article. For once, in a very rare instance, I agree with them. In fact, it drove me nuts every time I read an article about how the U.S. canceled some type of test or another because of heightened tensions. It's like, what in the hell are you telling these people? Oh, well, we don't want you to possibly be offended, and we're going to cancel the test, and could you please send over what pronouns you prefer us to use, please, and what genders you are? You know, I mean, it's ridiculous. It is really ridiculous. This is the first time in a while that I've actually seen them just go forward. I don't know. Messed up. Said, we need to understand that NATO's firm, predictable... Or wait, I did read that, didn't I? NATO's preparedness to defend against any attack deters nuclear threats, Stoltenberg said. This was important before the invasion of Ukraine. It has become even more important after, not least in the light of nuclear rhetoric from President Putin and from Russia, he added. And then that goes into what's happened in the past. So, anyway, the exercise itself is not a big deal, but it is just something to pay attention to. I don't think anything will come from it. Putin's going to ignore it. Because if he makes a big deal of it, it makes him look weak. The more he ignores it, the more it looks to those watching that he ain't concerned with it. And I'm sure he's not, to be quite honest. NATO admitted it's at war with Russia, says Medvedev. Notice the rhetoric is building, and that is something that we need to keep a close eye on. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg may have inadvertently admitted that the Western military alliance is at war with Moscow, at least in the eyes of former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. At issue is Stoltenberg's statement on Tuesday that a military victory for Russia and Ukraine would be a defeat for NATO. Medvedev called the comment an open confirmation of NATO's participation in the war against our country, an unwise but pure-hearted remark. The honest Norwegian fellow has finally admitted it. Stoltenberg, formerly Prime Minister of Norway, made his comments in a press briefing as NATO ministers prepared to meet on Wednesday with Ukrainian Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov. Among other issues, the ministers will discuss how to meet Kiev's urgent needs and shore up their own weapons stockpiles after shipping billions of dollars worth of military aid to Ukraine in hopes of helping to defeat Russian forces. There's an urgent need for air defense, but of course also many other capabilities, precision-guided ammunition, HIMARS, and other advanced modern NATO standard systems, Stoltenberg said of Ukraine's aid requests. He added the NATO members are providing unprecedented support because they understand that we have a moral, political, and security interest in ensuring that Ukraine wins the war against President Putin. Russian officials have pointed out that providing more advanced weaponry to Ukraine, such as multiple rocket launcher systems, will increase the risk of triggering a wider conflict. The fastest way to bring the conflict in Ukraine to the point of no return is to arm the psychos in Kiev with longer-range MRLs, Medvedev said. The elderly leaders of Washington, OBCOM, and NATO upstarts must use their softened brains at least sometimes. That's a pretty strong statement. Stoltenberg insisted that NATO is not a party to the conflict, even as it plays a key role. He vowed that the bloc will stand with Ukraine as long as it takes to defeat Russia. It is important for all of us that Ukraine wins the battle, the war against invading Russian forces, because if Putin wins, that is not only a big defeat for Ukrainians, but also a defeat but will be a defeat and dangerous for us all. Sorry, got ahead of myself. The NATO chief also accused Putin of reckless nuclear rhetoric, contributing to the most significant escalation since the start of the war. However, when asked whether the risk of miscalculation amid heightened tensions with Russia prompted NATO members to consider canceling or modifying the bloc's planned nuclear drill next week, he said now is the right time to be firm and clear that NATO is there to protect and defend all allies. So, again, it's building up. Not that just that in and of itself really concerns me. It's all of it. Hang on, I gotta have coffee. I mean, the thing of it is, there's always a point of no return. And I really do think that NATO is approaching that very quickly if we haven't already stood on it. We're not standing on it, we're close. Alright. Shifting gears a little bit. IMF and World Bank sound alarm over recession. And the world's economy may plunge into a recession next year. I always love these articles because they act like totally oblivious to what's going on right now. Anyway, the world's economy may plunge into a recession next year as central banks raise interest rates to battle inflation, but are stalling growth in the process, according to World Bank President David Malpass and IMF head Kristalina Georgieva. The two spoke at a joint virtual discussion on Monday. There is a risk and real danger of a world recession next year, Malpass stated, noting that slowing growth in the advanced economies and currency depreciation in many developing countries are signaling a deterioration of the global economy. Development efforts are facing a crisis amid a vast array of problems, he added. Georgieva agreed that the risk of recession has increased, noting that countries that jointly account for a third of the world's GDP are at risk of falling into a recession. The nations may experience negative growth during the last quarter of 2022 and the first quarter of 2023, she added. According to IMF estimates, global losses from the economic slowdown may reach as much as $4 trillion by 2026, which is equivalent to the size of Germany's GDP. Nevertheless, Georgieva says the policymakers can't let inflation become a runaway train without taking measures to tame it. Many central banks have hiked interest rates this year in an attempt to battle with tighter monetary policy the inflation sparked by rising energy costs and the legacy of pandemic-era loose monetary and fiscal policies. I guess that's one way of putting it. The European Central Bank hiked its benchmark rate to an unprecedented 75 basis points last month, following a 50 basis point hike in July, the first in over a decade. The U.S. Federal Reserve has delivered several rate hikes, while the Bank of England announced the steepest interest rate hike in over 20 years in August, upping its benchmark rate by half a percentage point to 1.75% in what was its sixth rate rise since December. Damn. They're trying to tongue-tie me, man. 2 more tabs. I have no idea if they're stopped. If I don't know, did I read that? I know nothing about the money market, man. Nothing at all. I couldn't even tell you honestly what a bond is. I have no idea. No clue. That's one area that I know nothing, absolutely nothing about. Let's see. Top U.S. bank issues grim prediction. The Federal Reserve's aggressive efforts to bring down historically high inflation will cause the U.S. economy to start losing tens of thousands of jobs a month beginning early next year, Bank of America warned in a note to clients seen by CNN. The pace of U.S. job growth is expected to be roughly cut in half during the fourth quarter of this year, according to the media outlet reporting on Monday. Let me look up and see. I think I heard, let's see. Yeah, it might be in the headlines. There was a lot of stuff, I only pull up a few headlines. And to be honest, there could be an important headline there that I should have pulled up and didn't, just because I don't understand what it means. You know what I'm saying? If it was something about some type of monetary policy or something like that, I may not know what it means and may just gloss right over it. So I know there was quite a few headlines today, and there was quite a few involving the economy. So maybe we'll see something then. I know I heard something. Yeah, another plane. Hang on. That's that one right there, which is a Boeing 737-800, and it's at 18,125 feet. Sounds pretty loud. Anyway, we're not here to chase planes around the sky. Let's see. I'm not quite sure where I was. I'll start here. The pace of the U.S. job growth is expected to be roughly cut in half during the fourth quarter of this year, according to the media outlet reporting on Monday. As pressure from the rate hikes mounts, non-farm payrolls will begin shrinking in early 2023, translating to a loss of about 175,000 jobs a month during the first quarter, the bank said. Charts reportedly published by B of A suggest that job losses will continue through much of 2023. The premise is a harder landing rather than a softer one, the head of the U.S. economics at B of A, Michael Gapin, told CNN. Analysts at the investment bank indicated that in a perfect world, the central bank would slow the job market enough to bring inflation back to healthy levels, but not so much that it would cause significant and persistent job losses. However, B of A doesn't think the Fed will be able to pull that off. We are looking for a recession to begin in the first half of next year, Gapin said. On Friday, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that although the job market is slowing down, the country added a stronger than expected 263,000 jobs in September, while the unemployment rate actually dropped to 3.5%, matching its lowest level since 1969. But the Fed's aggressive interest rate hikes to ease demand could change the course of things, B of A notes. According to Gapin, the unemployment rate will climb to around 5% or 5.5% over the next year against the Fed's expectation of 4.4%. The Fed has been raising interest rates at the fastest pace in at least 4 decades to cool spiraling inflation, despite the risk that this will exacerbate recession risks. So now here's the thing. We all know that they lie about these numbers, and that frustrates me for many reasons. But probably the biggest reason it frustrates me is because if we the people don't know the truth about what's going on, how can we possibly approach the problem? Because if there's a problem like that in this nation, we the people are the ones that are going to fix that. Who else is going to fix that? Does the government really create jobs? Oh, sure, they create bureaucratic wings that they hire a bunch of people to work for. That's not what I'm talking about. Just in regular industry and manufacturing and what have you, do they create jobs? No, they don't. We do. We do. And if we're given false information or bad information, then how are we going to make proper decisions? Right? There may be somebody out there right now in a business that's not been going down with everything that's going on. They happen to be in some type of business that happens to be under more and more demand, right? So they need to hire people. So, they may look at stuff going on and go, okay, well, I'll put off expanding my company and hiring more employees because it looks like things are going okay according to these numbers. We're not doing that bad. And they may hang on. They may hold off on doing that. To whereas if you told the people the truth and we're like, hey, we're hurting. We need job creators out there, please. Let's do what we can. Let's get some jobs created. Let's make sure they're good jobs that people can afford to live with. Let's make this happen. The American people are incredible, resourceful people. But they have to be given a chance. And in order to have a chance, you have to know the truth. These people keep talking about how we're going to be in a recession next year. Newsflash. We've been in a recession. You mean a depression. And that would be correct. We will be in a depression next year. And I don't think there's a damn thing out there that's going to stop that. I don't think even if the government was straight with us and worked with us to start turning this around, we're still going to go through that mud puddle. Look at how long it took and how much it took to grind these gears of this nation down to as slow as what they are now. That took a lot. It actually impressed me how resilient that the United States really is. But it's going to be twice as hard to climb back up that other side. And it's going to take twice as long. We're in for a hell of a ride. They're just not being straight about it yet. Why? Because they're still trying to make money. And the more you think things are okie doke, the more likely you are to spend it on nonsense. That's what they want. And if possible, they want you to go into debt for nonsense. They really like that. Well, this twit is back in the back in the news. I said the paper. I'm old. I said twit. I want to say something else, but might be too offensive. So, I'll just say this is a wonderful young lady that needs thrown off a bridge. Yeah, that'll work. That wasn't offensive, right? I didn't call her a twat. That wasn't offensive. Anyway, I am so glad. So glad. I mean, I couldn't sleep. The last week, I could not sleep because I was so concerned about what Greta Thunberg was going to be saying about Germany keeping nuclear plants running. Because, if she'd have said that they had to just turn out the lights, turn those plants off, the world would have to listen. Why is she in the news again? I mean, I thought we threw her off the bridge a couple years ago. Not literally, of course, but figuratively, mentally, emotionally. I don't know, maybe you weren't quite that extreme. Maybe you just flushed your head down the toilet a couple of times. Hey, I'm not going to judge. But, I didn't realize that nations had to seek permission from Greta Thunberg on energy policy. Send her to my home. I got a toilet. It flushes right. I don't get it. I just don't. I don't get it. Why do we even play like it matters? That's the thing I don't understand. Oh, man. Okay. Let's do some headlines and call it a Wednesday. It's Tuesday. I was just thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, dumbass. See what I mean? Thanks, Greta. Had me all flustered. Alright. Heat waves could make entire regions uninhabitable, says the UN. New Zealand unveils plan to tax cow farts. I'm sure you're all happy on that, Greta. Thank you. I'm sure you had a hand in that. And IMF and World Bank sound alarm over recession. Oh, actually, I read that headline. Indian banks shun rupee trade with Russia, says Reuters. Kiev insists it needs U.S. air defenses and long-range missiles, says reports. Sweden will not share Nord Stream probe findings with Russia, says PM. EU prosperity based on China and Russia, says Burrell. Final draft ready in Israel-Lebanon standoff, says Reuters. U.S. taking advantage of EU energy crisis, says Paris. That would be correct. Kiev introduces rolling power blackouts. Ukraine conflict faces inflection point, says Belarus. Read that article. French authorities threaten intervention over strikes. Moscow reveals results of new strikes on Ukraine. I read that article. Hungarian PM jokes about German chancellor being still alive. UK government split on transgender guidance, says The Times. Tulsi Gabbard quits warmongering Democrats. Russia to nationalize assets of Japanese car maker, says Trade Ministry. Russia would consider G20 Putin-Biden meeting, says Lavrov. Russian cosmonaut swindles $30,000 from Japanese woman. I guess being a cosmonaut doesn't pay enough. Hungarian PM has one question after launch of official Twitter account. Europe's biggest nuclear plant shifts power source. Russia's victory will be NATO's defeat, says Stoltenberg. Putin reveals Russia's goals in global energy market. A Russian telegram boss cancels birthday. However that happens. A White House willing to revisit ties with key ally. Ukraine targets energy infrastructure in Russia, says governor. EU declares Nicaragua's envoy persona non grata. Ukraine gets highly anticipated arms from Germany, says Spiegel. Meta added to Russia's list of extremist and terrorist organizations. Yes, Facebook is now on a list. IMF predicts scale of Ukrainian recession. A third of Russia's neighbors reservists skip training camp. Zelensky wants international observers on Belarus border. UK intelligence plotted Crimean bridge bombing, says a report. Kremlin comments on travel ban plans for Russian men. Elon Musk denies Putin rumor. Seoul to end blackout on North Korean media. Biden calls Putin a rational actor. NATO wants lost underwater drone under Nord Stream, Gazprom reminds. And all the rest of them I read articles. So, that would cover it. Fun. Anyway, I would say that covers anything I got. I can't think of anything else. I think I'm gonna boogie out of here, get my trash out, and go to bed. Because that's how we roll around here, yo. We're like hard, man. We're hard. Usually sleep by 10 o'clock. Anyway, I'm getting out of here. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. I appreciate you coming. God willing, we'll see you again tomorrow. I know I keep repeating myself. I'm tired. Anyway, I will see you all tomorrow. God bless you. We love you. Be one with your spirit. And shalom.